us attend.
At that time, as Jesus was passing through Jericho, behold, there was a man named Zacchaeus, and he was a leading publican, and he was rich. And he was trying to see Jesus to find out who he was, but could not, on account of the crowd, for he was small of stature. So he ran on ahead and climbed up into a sycamore tree to see him, for he was going to pass that way. And when Jesus came to the place, he looked up and saw him, and said to him, Zacchaeus, make haste and come down, for I must stay in your house today. And he made haste and came down and welcomed him joyfully. And upon seeing it, all began to murmur, saying, he has gone to be the guest of a man who is a sinner. But Zacchaeus stood and said to the Lord, behold, Lord, I give 1/2 of my possessions to the poor, and if I have defrauded anyone of anything, I restore it fourfold. Jesus said to him, today salvation has come to this house, since he too is a son of Abraham. For the Son of Man came to seek and to save what was lost.
Peace be to you who have proclaimed the glad tidings.
Glory to thee, O Lord. Glory to thee.
In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the all-holy and good and life-giving Spirit. My beloved, it is indeed a great joy for me to be with you on this Sunday in particular, which is known as Zacchaeus Sunday, the Sunday of Zacchaeus. It is a unique Sunday because it represents for all of us a transitional point where we have gone from the joyous celebrations of the Nativity of Christ, his baptism, and for us who are in the Serbian Church, the endless and marvelous Saint Sava celebrations here and throughout the world. And then today is the first announcement of the arrival of the Sundays of preparation for Great and Holy Lent. We heard about a man who was not a favorite of many people, Zacchaeus. Why? He was a tax collector. And on top of everything, he was of short stature, as it was mentioned in Scripture. This gospel lesson presents us with 3 points that we have to come to terms with and understand in order to effect salvation for us and so that we can enter into Great Lent. Number 1 is the question of desire. Želja, čežnja, desire. Zacchaeus had such a great desire in his heart of hearts, where he already saw Jesus Christ without having set his eyes on him. He wanted to see him, but he knew he was too short. And all the people were around Christ, and they were as a great throng of people, and how could he even come near him? So he looked, and he saw we call it a wild fig tree or a sycamore tree, and he climbed up into it. He overcame the shortness of his stature, but something happened to Zacchaeus when he climbed up that tree. His life changed once and forever because he wanted to see Christ not only in his heart, where he already was, but with his physical eyes. Christ, on the other hand, already saw Zacchaeus before even seeing him as the omnipotent God. And he looked up into the tree and he said, Zacchaeus, come down. And to the great shock and dismay of all of those people that gathered around, instead of Jesus Christ looking around to find the best suited citizen of that territory to go into his house, to go into a good family's home, no, you, Zacchaeus, the tax collector who nobody likes, I need to come into your house today because you too are a son of Abraham and salvation has come to you. So, what is number one? Desire. Zacchaeus fulfilled his desire. Number two is, how do we overcome all of our shortcomings and obstacles in life? Each and every one of us, without exception, has to find a way to climb up in a spiritual sycamore tree. This is why for us in Orthodoxy, have you ever noticed that many of our holy churches and monasteries in particular are built on top of mountains? Because the physical act of climbing is an act of spiritual ascent, going toward the heavens in order to meet God, going up to change your life and to transfigure your life as did Christ on Mount Tabor. And so Zacchaeus managed to change his life and gave each and every one of us the chance to change our lives. Thereafter, I mentioned there was a third point. What is the third point? How to see Jesus Christ. It's not a matter of just looking at an icon. It's not a matter of thinking about Christ, but how do we see him? Seeing him with our physical eyes is not enough. We have to be able to see Christ with the one and only eye that can change our lives forever. It's the eye of the human heart. And to find Christ with that eye and to look upon him. How are we going to do that? This is left as an open-ended question. Zacchaeus did it. But now how are we going to do it? Every Sunday of Great Lent, my beloved, pay attention to the gospel lessons that are read. Every single Sunday will uncover something about Jesus Christ, who he is, and why he came to this world. Listen carefully to what each gospel says, and particularly how Christ maintains such perfect balance between his humanity and divinity. Whenever somebody says to him, "You are the Son of God," he looks at them and says, "I'm the Son of Man." When somebody says, "You are the Son of Man," "I'm the Son of God." You see perfect balance. And so we will learn every Sunday something new about Zacchaeus. And it's interesting that our first encounter with Christ on the first Sunday of Lent will happen under a tree. Zacchaeus was on top of a tree. Nathanael was standing under a tree, and Christ saw him from even before he was born and called him to his service. So you see, Lent is not a period when we say, we have to fast. Can't eat meat anymore. No more dairy, no more eggs, none of that. Forget about that. It's totally coincidental. Think about, I'm going to discover Christ anew every year through every gospel read during the Sundays of Great Lent. That is a great point of excitement for every person to find out who is going to save you. And in the end, you will answer a great existential conundrum. Who is God and who am I? If you want to know who you are, you also have to find out who is God. But God is going to reveal himself to us, and it's up to us to discover what he has said, what he has done, and how he has revealed himself. And ultimately, the greatest reward of all, as I mentioned, the first point was desire, was it not? The great desire of Zacchaeus to see Christ. When was that desire fulfilled in Jesus Christ? We know it was fulfilled in Zacchaeus when he saw him and when he saw Christ and Christ entered his home. But when was it fulfilled for Christ? On Holy Thursday at the Last Supper. How beautifully it is explained in the Church Slavonic language when Christ sat down with his disciples and said, "Sožadaniem želja," with great desire, sa velikom željom želeo sam da podelim ovu večeru sa vama. With great desire have I desired to eat this meal together with you. that's where Christ's desire is fulfilled, because he left behind from that encounter with Zacchaeus until our very day the ability to meet him, to see him, and to taste of him in Holy Communion. So you see, Christ always fulfills everything that he has pledged that he would do for us and for our salvation, even more so than we can possibly imagine. And so that book is never closed, but continually open. For that reason, we go through the liturgical cycle. And every year, you would say, here we go again. The same gospel. Is it going to be the same sermon? But every time something new is uncovered and something new comes before us and gives us the ability and the great desire to move forward in life. And may Christ God grant each and every one of you, without exception, my beloved, the ability to see Christ and to fulfill the heart's desire which you yearn for so much in this life and in the life to come. Živi bili najljubljeni, neka je Bogom blagosloven ovaj današnji naš susret i neka bi Gospod Bog čuvao i štitio vas i vaše čestite porodice od ovog današnjeg radosnog susreta do onog konačnog i sve radosnog susreta u Hristovo carstvo nebeskom. Amin. Bože daj.